interpretation and then ask a question. One is I was sort of struck by your initial comments about dumbing down. And just in the spirit of provocation, I wonder if it's worth musing on. We don't have to do it here, but I'll just throw it out, to wonder if there's an analogy between dumbing down in the school systems and outsourcing in the labor force across America, in the sense that what happens is that in both cases, authority systems obviate or escape the need to negotiate with intelligent, autonomous people. You know, you don't have to argue with labor. You don't have to negotiate with organized folks who are working for a living if you send their work to an authoritarian country and have it done there. And likewise, in a high school, if you dumb things down, in effect, you're avoiding the whole problem of having to wrestle with and negotiate with independent-minded and perhaps even disagreeing smart people. And that leads me to the question that I wanted to ask you, and this is something I really do wish you'd respond to. Again, in the spirit of thought experiment and thinking of Becker as a contrarian, suppose we turn things upside down and ask ourselves, what kinds of forces are actually secretly desiring, maybe even unconsciously, perversely, and unawares, desiring to keep young people under control and therefore not too smart? I have a feeling school boards and sometimes even parents, against their best interests, are terribly frightened that if people become too curious, too inquisitive, too independent in a school system, they will upset the deep immortality fantasies of the social world around them. And therefore, practically speaking, my sense is there's a lot of invisible and therefore insidious and hard to counter repression trying to keep people dumb. Do you see this? And if so, what form do you suppose it takes?
We're scared of the Japanese. We're scared of the Chinese. We're scared of the Indians. We're scared of all of these other parts of the world that are overtaking us. I mean, it goes back to Reagan, the nation at risk, the education system's fallen behind. I suppose it goes back to Sputnik, right? That our educational system is failing us, so we have to fix it, and we can't trust the teachers to do it, and we can't trust the schools themselves to do it. So we need government to step in and solve the problems through higher forms of regulation, through standardized tests, through all of these systems, through this an increasingly standardized curriculum, but it changes every 2 years because it's highly political. And I guess the way I'm trying to answer your question is that we're scared that our educational system is failing the country and our children, and it's putting us at risk. And so we come up with a solution that involves not teaching for depth, not teaching for critical thinking, but teaching in order to be able to fill in the bubbles on the test, to prove that we're teaching well. And what that requires the teachers to do is then rethink the curriculum that they're teaching, rethink the way to deliver that curriculum. It requires the students to be less engaged with what they're learning because it's not creative, it's purely rote memorization a lot of the time. And then when that doesn't work, we change it again, and it involves different material that they have to memorize to reproduce on the test. But all in so doing, we teach it worse. The students are less engaged, and we end up with worse results than we had when we started, when it wasn't really a problem to begin with. So I guess I don't know. We're scared and we make bad decisions. I don't know if there's a great conspiracy that we're trying to produce it's a capitalist system trying to produce a labor force that will dumbly work in factories. Given that we don't have factories left, that's kind of a problem. Is the rambling response, with the point being that we continue to ruin the educational system by thinking we're fixing it. The end.
The question has to do about the use of the Becker educational model in the quantitative sense. Sheldon's experiments demonstrating these activities. There's the biological science that certainly could have connected with this particular weekend, but certainly the social scientists, social science perspective in bringing kids to the awareness that that marketing and how they're being impacted every day is a very quantitative, calculated experiment of capitalism. Here's how it works, and here's some snippets of how Becker has understood this in these domains. I would think those could be very useful little vignettes. But have you done it, and what's your sense, and have you seen it anywhere in the scientific side of the educational high school models?
The only thing I've done in the ballpark of that is that early in my life, death, immortality classes this semester, I had the students do a 3-day study of the Arizona Republic, the major newspaper in Arizona. And so they had to follow all the steps of the study. They had to construct a methodology. They had to come up with the steps they were going to run through to execute the search. They had to define the search terms that we were looking for, references to life, to death, to immortality. What do each of those terms actually mean? We had to go through and log those. We had to keep track of every single reference that popped up over the course of those 3 days. We had to analyze it. Then I even had them write it up in study form. So, you know, introduction, methodology, results, discussion, so that they'd walk through the steps of a proper study. So that's the most that I've done.